Alara, let's get a tactical divorce just for 3 months, Leo Thorne proposed, holding the separation agreement as if it were a casual business proposal. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. Looking at the familiar planes of his face, the one I had loved for so long, my heart felt like a hollow, cold space. In my previous life, I had fallen for his elaborate lies. 3 months later, he had officially registered his marriage with his first love, Isabel Croft, and I was unceremoniously discarded. In this lifetime, since he wanted a sham divorce, I was determined to grant him his wish. This time, however, someone else would be the one to turn the pretense into a permanent reality. It was March, and the last vestiges of winter's chill clung to the air. I sat on a bench under the sprawling sycamore tree in the center of the officer's compound, the crisp pages of the agreement Leo had just handed me resting in my lap. A storm of conflicting emotions brewed inside me, a stark contrast to the quiet scenery. Ilara, have you decided? Leo paced in front of me, his perfectly pressed uniform doing little to hide the nervous energy thrumming through him. I lifted my head to look at him, this man whose face was as familiar to me as my own reflection. The sharp brows, the intense dark eyes, the thin lips now pressed into a tight line. He was the very picture of a distinguished officer. It was a shame such a handsome exterior concealed a heart that was anything but kind. Why a tactical divorce? I asked, my voice deliberately even, feigning an ignorance I did not feel. Leo's pacing faltered. His expression became slightly strained. It's a high-level assignment. I need to appear unattached to get close to the target. You understand? This is for the good of the service, for the country. He cloaked his intentions in the noble language of duty, but I knew the truth. It was all for Isabel, the woman he had never truly let go of. In my past life, my naivety had been my downfall. I had believed his every word without question. 3 months later, I had arrived at the registrar's office, my papers in hand, ready to remarry him, only to find he had already pledged his life to Isabel. It was in that moment that I truly understood the crushing weight of despair. Ilara, Leo waved a hand in front of my face, pulling me from the depths of my memories. What are you thinking about? I blinked back to the present, a faint, cool smile touching my lips. I was just thinking that this assignment of yours sounds quite unusual. It is, Leo agreed, a flicker of guilt crossing his features before it was quickly suppressed. But Alara, I promise you, in 3 months, we'll remarry. There's no need for promises. I cut him off smoothly, rising to my feet. I'll do it. Leo was visibly taken aback, his surprise evident. He clearly hadn't expected me to consent so easily. You really agree? Why wouldn't I said, brushing a non-existent piece of dust from my slacks. You're right, it's for the service, for the country. As the wife of an officer, it's my duty to support your work. A wave of palpable relief washed over his face. Alara, I knew you'd understand. As soon as the mission is complete, I'll make it up to you, I promise. Make it up to me, I thought with a silent, bitter laugh. You said the same thing last time. So when do we handle the paperwork? I asked, my tone all business. Tomorrow morning. I've already spoken with the clerk at the courthouse, Leo said, then seemed to remember something else. And by the way, let's not tell my parents about this for now. I don't want to worry them. I nodded. All right, I know how to handle it. Watching his figure retreat down the path, I tightened my grip on the divorce agreement. The paper crinkled in my fist. In this lifetime, Leo, I will make you understand the true meaning of regret. That evening, when I returned home, my father, General Marcus Vance, was in his study reviewing some files. He looked up as I entered. You're back. Where's Leo? He had something come up at the last minute and had to leave, I replied, sinking into the plush sofa across from his desk. Dad, I need to ask you something. What is it? My father set his documents aside, giving me his full attention. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. If, and this is just a hypothetical, if Leo wanted to divorce me, what would you do? The general's expression hardened instantly. He wouldn't dare. I'd break his legs. A surge of warmth spread through my chest at my father's fierce, protective reaction. In my past life, I had hidden the divorce from my family out of shame. By the time my father found out, the damage was irreversible. This time, I wouldn't let my family suffer the same anxiety. Dad, it's just a hypothetical, I said with a reassuring smile. Leo treats me very well. General Vance visibly relaxed. That's good, but Alara, if Leo ever does anything to hurt you, you must tell me. Do you understand? Understood. I nodded, though my mind was already spinning with other calculations. Back in my room, I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and retrieved a small, leather-bound notebook from the very back. It was the diary I had kept in my previous life, a meticulous record of the 3 months between the fake divorce and the real one. I turned to the first page, the familiar script, a painful reminder. March 15th. Leo proposed a tactical divorce citing a mission requirement. I agreed. March 16th, we completed the divorce proceedings. Leo said we would remarry in 3 months. March 20th, I heard Isabel Croft returned from overseas and is staying at the official guest house. March 25th, Leo began staying out late frequently, claiming he was on assignment. April 1st, I saw Leo and Isabel walking together in the park. They looked very close. April 15th, Isabel is pregnant. Leo was ecstatic. May 20th, Leo and Isabel received their marriage license. When I went to the courthouse to remarry him, the clerk informed me that he was already married. Reading the words, my heart ached with a phantom pain. From beginning to end, I had been a fool, completely played by Leo and Isabel. In this lifetime, I would make them both taste the bitterness of betrayal. I closed the diary and walked to the window. The moon was a bright, full circle in the sky, casting a lacework of shadows from the sycamore branches onto the ground below. Tomorrow, a new life would begin. The next morning, I dressed with deliberate care, choosing my most flattering dress and applying a touch of makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back was 23, with sharp features and a dignified air. In my previous life, I had always favored a plain look, believing makeup to be a frivolous indulgence. In this life, I would embrace being the most beautiful version of myself. Leo was already waiting for me downstairs. When he saw me descend the stairs, a flicker of genuine admiration crossed his eyes. Alara, you look especially beautiful today. Thank you for the compliment, Captain Thorne, I replied with a graceful smile. Shall we go? After we're done, I still need to get to my office. On the way to the courthouse, Leo hesitated several times before finally speaking. Alara, you're not angry, are you? Why would I be angry? I countered smoothly. You're doing this for your work, for the country. I should be supporting you. He let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. I knew you were the most understanding person, Alara. Once this mission is over, we absolutely must have a grand wedding reception. Of course, I nodded, thinking to myself, whether you'll even have the chance for a wedding is another question entirely. The courthouse wasn't busy, and the procedure was over in a matter of minutes. When the clerk handed me the divorce certificate, a document that had once symbolized the end of my world, my heart was filled with a strange mix of emotions. In my past life, this red-trimmed booklet had made me cry for an entire night. But in this life, holding it felt as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. All right, it's done, Leo said, tucking his own certificate away. Alara, you've worked hard these past few months. It's my duty, I said, placing the certificate carefully into my handbag. I should get back to the office now. You can focus on your work. Leo nodded, but a hint of confusion lingered in his eyes. My composure was clearly unsettling to him. As we were about to part ways, he suddenly called out to me. Alara, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? Isabel Croft has returned from overseas and is temporarily staying at the official guest house, Leo said, his tone cautious. My mission is to get close to her and extract some information. I adopted an expression of sudden understanding. Oh, so that's why. I was wondering why you had to pretend to be single. Don't worry, I'll cooperate with your work. Leo's face flooded with gratitude. Alara, thank you for your understanding. Watching him walk away, a cold smile touched my lips. Extract information. Leo, do you really think I'm a child? I knew far more about Isabel Croft than he did. She was the daughter of a wealthy international businessman, and she was here to explore investment opportunities for a new factory. As for any so called intelligence, it was a complete fabrication. Leo just wanted a pretext to reconnect with the woman he'd always loved. I took out a small mirror to touch up my lipstick, then turned and headed directly toward the military guest house. Since Leo was so eager to get close to Isabel, I figured I might as well go and meet this legendary first love of his for myself. The military guest house was a modest 3-story building, but its interior was considered luxurious for the time. I walked straight to the front desk. "Excuse me, could you please tell me which room Miss Isabel Croft is staying in?" The young attendant at the desk glanced at me. "And you are?" "Alara Vance, daughter of General Vance." I stated my identity calmly. "Miss Croft is an old family friend, and I'm here to visit her." Hearing my father's name, the attendant immediately straightened up with respect. "Miss Croft is in room 208, but she should be in the dining hall at the moment." "Thank you." I nodded appreciatively and made my way toward the dining hall. It wasn't large, but it was tastefully arranged. I spotted Isabel immediately, seated at a table by the window. Even after all these years, she was just as I remembered. Beautiful, with elegant waves in her hair, and dressed in a sophisticated beige suit. Every movement she made exuded a quiet, confident grace. It was no wonder Leo had chosen her over me. I took a deep breath, composed my features, and walked toward her. "Excuse me, are you Miss Isabel Croft?" I asked politely. Isabel looked up, her gaze assessing me for a few seconds, before she offered a perfectly polite smile. "Yes, I am. And you are?" "I'm Alara Vance, General Marcus Vance's daughter," I said, extending my hand. "I've heard so much about you. It's a pleasure to finally meet." At the mention of my father's name, a flicker of distinct interest appeared in her eyes. "The daughter of General Vance. My apologies for not recognizing you sooner. Please, have a seat." I sat across from her, carefully observing the woman who had haunted my past life. She was undeniably beautiful, with a timeless quality that had been refined over the years. She had to be 28 now, but she looked as if she were still in her early 20s. "Miss Vance, was there something specific you wanted to see me about today?" Isabel asked, taking an elegant sip of her coffee. "Nothing in particular. I just heard you had returned from overseas and wanted to have the chance to meet you." I smiled naturally. "Are you back in the country to discuss investment opportunities?" Isabel nodded. "Yes. My father has some business interests, and I've come back to scout locations for a new factory. The specific project is still under consideration." "How long are you planning to stay?" I continued my questions. "About 3 months," she replied, then smoothly changed the subject. "I heard that you just got married, Miss Vance." My heart gave a slight jolt, but I kept my composure. "Oh, where did you hear that?" "I met Leo last night, and he happened to mention it." Isabel's voice was serene, but I detected a subtle shift in her tone when she said Leo's name. "So, they had already met last night." I smiled. "Leo is very busy with his work these days. We don't get to see each other very often." "Really?" Isabel nodded thoughtfully. "Leo is indeed a very capable man." I caught an unusual nuance in her voice. It was clear that whatever Leo had told her last night, it wasn't the full truth. "Miss Croft, when did you and Leo first meet?" I asked casually. Isabel seemed momentarily surprised, then replied, "A long time ago. It must have been 10 years now. We were both still very young back then." 10 years ago, Leo was 18, and so was Isabel. Their first love. What a fateful reunion, I sighed, as if genuinely moved. You must have had so much to talk about after all this time. Isabel's expression grew somewhat complicated. Yes, time does fly. We chatted for a while longer, mostly about inconsequential things. As we were parting, Isabel said, "Miss Vance, please feel free to visit any time. Being new here, it's wonderful to have met a friend like you." "Absolutely," I nodded. "Miss Croft, if there's anything you need help with, please don't hesitate to ask. My father still has some influence in this district." A flicker of gratitude passed through her eyes. "Thank you, that's very kind." As I walked out of the guest house, a clear picture had formed in my mind. Isabel still had feelings for Leo, and when Leo met her last night, he definitely did not tell her he was divorced. This was getting interesting. Why would he hide it? Was he unsure of her feelings, or was he trying to play a more complicated game? Whatever his reason, I knew I needed to stir the pot. Back at my office that afternoon, my colleague Chloe bounced over to my desk. Alara, you look so happy today. You're glowing. Really? I touched my cheek. Maybe it's just the nice weather. Chloe was the office gossip, always interested in everyone's private lives. By the way, how is Leo doing? I haven't seen him around lately. He's busy with work, I replied noncommittally. She wasn't deterred. I heard a beautiful businesswoman from overseas is staying at the military guest house. Is Leo in charge of her reception? My heart skipped a beat, but I maintained a placid exterior. I'm not sure. He doesn't really talk to me about his work. That woman, I saw her once. She's stunning, like a movie star, Chloe whispered. And I heard she's still single. She must have men lining up for her. I simply smiled and said nothing. When I got home that evening, my father was in the living room reading the newspaper. Dad, I have a question for you, I said, sitting beside him. What is it? He put down his paper. Do you know about the businesswoman from overseas who's staying at the guest house? My father nodded. Isabel Croft. I know of her. Her father, Julian Croft, is a major industrialist. She's here to discuss building a factory. Is her background clean? I pressed. He glanced at me. Why are you asking about this? No reason, just curious, I feigned nonchalance. I met her today and found her interesting. Her background is impeccable. Otherwise, she wouldn't be staying at the military guest house, he said. But Alara, it's probably best if you don't get too close to her. Why? She's a businesswoman, and people in her world prioritize profit above all else. You young people are too trusting and can be easily taken advantage of, my father said earnestly. I nodded in understanding, thinking to myself, you're right, Dad. Isabel Croft is a very calculating woman indeed. That night, I lay in bed, flipping through my old diary. According to the timeline from my past life, Leo would begin an intense pursuit of Isabel in the coming days. At first, she would keep him at a distance, but she would soon be won over by his apparent sincerity. Wait. A question suddenly occurred to me. In my previous life, when had Isabel found out that Leo was divorced? I searched my memory and recalled that it was about a month later. By then, Leo was completely infatuated and had confessed everything to her about the fake divorce. Isabel had appeared deeply moved, but in reality, she had known all along through her own channels. In that case, why don't I just tell her myself? I sat up, took out a pen and a sheet of fine stationery and began to write a letter. Dear Miss Croft, it was a pleasure meeting you today. There is something I feel you ought to know. Captain Thorne and I finalized our divorce proceedings this morning. He claimed it was necessary for a mission that required him to pose as a single man to get close to you. I trust that with your intelligence, you will understand what this truly implies. Best regards, Ilara Vance. After finishing the letter, I read it over one more time to ensure it was perfect before sealing it in an envelope. I would have it delivered to the guest house first thing in the morning. Let the storm I was brewing begin in earnest.